Hey gang, Ronan here. Welcome on back to the Cade and another episode of Sucker Punch Sunday. And for this week, we are going to go back a little over 20 years now that's 2025, to 2004. And we're going to play a game that I have never tried before, but it's right up my street in terms of a character that I know and love, as I suspect quite a lot of you have as well. If you have any fancy for all things kaiju since the early 1950s, we are going to go and play Godzilla Save the Earth. Now, this is actually a sequel to a game called Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee that was released in 2002. And then they did a sequel to this one called Godzilla Unleashed in 2007. It was created by Pipeworks Software in association with Atari. And it came out on the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox in North America in November of 2004. Was released in Europe and Japan in December, and Australia just before Christmas. Same thing for the Xbox. Now, this is actually a 3D fighting game, which is one of the reasons why I figured it'd be a perfect fit for Sucker Punch Sunday, and why I wanted to give it a go. Because if nothing else, as much as I love the Green Goliath, and I am a massive Godzilla fan, I have seen pretty much every Godzilla film, including the original, that has been released. And in fact, one of my favorite movies from last year was Godzilla -1, which, if you haven't seen it yet, and you're even a mild Godzilla fan, I seriously encourage it. It is a great movie. My one problem with it, and it's a small nitpick when you understand the budget that went into making that movie, is that Godzilla himself doesn't look spectacular. If they'd been able to create their version of Godzilla for Godzilla -1 using the American CGI budget that the 21st century Godzilla films have had, so you have Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Kong, King of the Monsters, all that stuff, that whole cycle that's come out. If they had that ability to create that Godzilla for -1, it would have been phenomenal. But with what they did, with what they had available to it, still a great movie. So again, very small nitpick, and I'll leave it there. So how this game works is pretty straightforward. As you see, we have 6 kaiju we can choose from, except we don't. We have 2000 Godzilla, we have Gigan, we have Megalon, we have Rodan, we have Anguirus, who I don't have any recollection of, and then we have 90s Godzilla. So we have 2 Godzillas for the price of 1 that we can pick from already. And as you look over, you see the differences in things like speed, what they inflict in terms of damage, and their overall stats. Now, my presumption is that we can unlock these remaining 12 slots as we go. But we're just going to jump in, and I am going to just, you know what, I'm going to take 90s Godzilla. No particular reason other than we have one of the two.
Greetings, pathetic earthlings.
Now, the plot of this game is that it takes place, again, as I said, 2 years after Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, and it involves mankind getting a hold of Godzilla's DNA, which is also known in the game as G-cells. This person you're looking at is the queen of an alien race called the Vortok. And they control a vast army of their own kaiju and want to use Godzilla's G-cells, his DNA, to create the ultimate weapon, which in this case is Space Godzilla. But what we're going to do over the next 25-30 minutes is we're just going to see how far we can go in this game.
Godzilla 90.
That roar will never, ever, ever get old for me. I don't care how old I get. I don't care how old Godzilla gets. That will always be one of the most recognizable sound effects to me ever made. So, I'm going to pause this really quick just to give you an idea of how this works. And yes, I do see that it's on easy. That's how we got it out of the box. So that's how I'm playing it for the purposes of this argument. So, as you see, it's a 3D fighting game. So you have your square button, or X button, if you're playing with an Xbox controller, is your punch attack. Your A button, or your X button on a PlayStation controller, if you're Godzilla, it controls your tail. Your B button, or your O button on a PS controller, is your medium attack, and then your R2 button is jump. Your R1 button controls his atomic breath, which you can use, but you have to be sparing about it, so you have to think about it like his special attack. And then your Y button, or your triangle button on a PlayStation controller, allows him to block. So really, that's the stuff that you've got to worry about in this game, or what you've got to take advantage of. Otherwise, it's the joystick to move, and then it's just have at it. Now, you will see, as I just took out that guy in the helicopter, he's going to try and burrow under the ground and take me out. And I don't want him to do that, which is why I tried to jump away. And then it's last kaiju standing wins. So there's the atomic breath, and you see there are 5 like canisters or little icons in the lower left-hand corner. That controls the amount of power-ups you can get. Now, there are some of those that are somewhere in this zone, like that one right there. I want to get that. That gave me a health boost. But there'll be other ones around that I grab. So there's one you see right down this way, and there's one down there. So I'm going to have him come get me. Now you see that there is a timer in the middle of the HUD, which is typical for fighting games. But unlike having 50 seconds, or 99 is usually what you have in most fighting games, you've got like 5 minutes. And also, this is a one-and-done fighting game. If I beat Baragon here, which I just did because I atomic breathed him, that's it. It's not best 2 out of 3. So, I know this only because that was how I figured this all out when I did my practice run to make sure the game works. So when this game came out again in 2004, the reviews of it weren't great, but they weren't terrible. Metacritic's aggregate score on it for the PS2 is 62 out of 100. On Xbox, it's 63 out of 100. So it's not really a case of one is definitively better than the other. Now, when your opponent is down, as I'm dealing with Megalon here, you can continue to hammer away on him. Ah, he got to me. Now, you may see over on the left side of the screen, there's like a green sheen coming from the ground. That's the end of the battle arena. So while we are in this city, and we can go full kaiju and rip all the buildings down, as you see like that, there's only so far we can go. But you got a fairly wide arena to work in, which is cool, because again, it allows me to be able to run around and pick up stuff like that. Now, Megalon is a little bit tougher. If you've never seen him before, yes, he is a giant beetle with big old what look like big metal shovels for legs, or for hands. Ah! I got cocky, tried to use the atomic breath on him, and instead... Ooh! And he just got a health boost. Now, if there's one thing that I can say declaratively about any game featuring Godzilla, it's a similar issue to what I find in things like trying to make a game with characters like Superman. And it's this. It is not easy to come up with a game, or really any IP, where, whoop, because he knocks me down really quick. It's not always easy to come up with a game where a character like Godzilla is utilized in the best possible way. And there have been games that have come out since this one where that is very, very much on display. If I remember right, there was a Godzilla game that came out in 2014, 2015 for the PS3 that I remember got a lot of hype because it came out around the same time that Toei, the company that created Godzilla, or Toho, I should say. Toei is a different company. Oh, you King Ghidorah. The lightning god. I will see your lightning breath and raise you an atomic blast. But it was not a fighting game. It was pretty much you are Godzilla and you are going around Tokyo or Japan and just devastating everything while humanity is trying its best to stop him. And that game was not well received at all. Ow. Ha! I got my heel up. And I will torch you that way. And it brings up a question that has bedeviled content creators and IP creators of all sorts for a really long time. Which is, when you have a character who is effectively a god, and Godzilla being an alpha predator of the highest possible caliber, how do you make an interesting game around that premise when you know you can't kill him, except unless that's the only way you can beat him? And as we talked about when we did the Death and Return of Superman earlier in this series, it's a similar problem. It's you know, trying to come up with a compelling story with a character who is that omnipotent, for lack of a better term, but it's not inaccurate, can really be a problem. So it stands to reason, if you're going to have Godzilla do anything, this is just an extension of all the great Toho films and a lot of the lesser Toho films, and there's a great many in the entire history of Godzilla, where this is what it all comes down to. You have kaiju versus kaiju, knock them down, drag them out, rock them, sock them action. Over an intricately built set. Ooh, now we're in... They destroyed the Transamerica Pyramid in San Francisco. We can't let this stand. Destroy the UFOs before they destroy the pyramid building. Some UFOs drop heavy energy power-ups. Gather them to recharge energy. So... So this is new. I wasn't expecting to have this be in here. I wonder if it's like a bonus level. Except he doesn't turn. How the heck am I supposed to take these things down if Godzilla can't jump and we can't hit him from down here? So it's all atomic breath or nothing. So I have to watch the gauge on the atomic breath, make sure I have enough of it. Except I'm not hitting these UFOs for a dang. They're hitting me all the time. Alright, so it looks like I'm supposed to go lock onto them. But they're just teeing off on me. And there's no time limit on this. So it's get through this until they are toast. But meanwhile, they are blasting away on me, and I can't get to them. This is not how I thought this game was going to be. Hey, I got one. One down, 5 to go, and I'm almost dead. And so is the Trans-America Pyramid. Which, if you've never seen this building before, it's an actual building that exists in San Francisco. And I have seen it. I've never been up in it, but I've taken photos of it in my many travels over the years. I've only been to San Francisco once. And honestly, that was enough for me. I'm not knocking the city, but at the end of the day, I'm not a California kid. Well, this is annoying as all get out. I'm not going to save the building, and they're going to take me out before I take out all these UFOs. Because my atomic breath takes too long to recharge, and I'm not reaching them. Now the question is, what did that get me? Challenge results failed. Continue. Challenge. Yep. Challenge been unlocked. Now, is this gonna let me move on, or is that game over? That's very, very murky in how they explain all this.
Godzilla 90.
Mogira.
Monster.
Ah, MegaGodzilla. Ow. Ow. No, you don't get to pick the building up and throw it at me. I think that's a baseball stadium right there. That's right, get you pinned right up against the barrier. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to get life back by tapping into the power grid. But I mean, for a 3D fighting game, graphically this isn't terrible. And you have to remember, this is 2000, or 2004. So the graphic fidelity has gotten better. It is annoying that trying to steer my way through all these buildings can be a bit of a hassle. I do like the fact that I can just knock them down. I just took out that skyscraper. That's what I wanted. Give me the attack power up. Ow. Alright, what does that give me? Picking up an Atari logo apparently doesn't get me much. That's Mothra flying around. She's coming in to help. So that may have been what that was, is that we got intervention from Mothra.
KO.
Godzilla 90s has won.
You win.
Now, going a little bit further into the reviews for this game, Electronic Gaming Monthly gave both the PS2 and Xbox version a 5.3 out of 10. Game Informer and GameSpot were 6 out of 10. GameSpy gave it 3 stars out of 5. IGN 6.5 out of 10. So, I mean, this is pretty much a C-grade game. 1UP in their review said that Godzilla Save the Earth is a fun game and a worthy sequel to Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. If it had been afforded a little bit more finesse, especially regarding the challenges, I agree with that, and a little more authentic Godzilla flavor, it'd be even sweeter. The fact is that unless you're a Godzilla fan, there are better games of this general type out there. War of the Monsters, Def Jam Fight for New York, but the kaiju in Godzilla's universe are way cooler than grown sweaty men in tights. And Gyrus the Angry Armadillo. Now, again, being kaiju, there's not going to be a whole lot that these giant monsters can do outside of their usual kick, punch. I love that we get the mid-70s, early 80s Godzilla breakdance tailspin. He was not able to do that in the original Godzilla movies, going back to Godzilla in 1954, which, if you've never seen the original Godzilla, if you've never seen Godzilla, the authentic Japanese version of it, I highly recommend that as well. It is very different than the bastardized American version we got with the late Raymond Burr in the mid to late 50s, if not the early 60s. I'm beating the snot out of Anguirus. Took out the water tank. But if you can pretty much stack moves with Godzilla, so if you can go like a couple punches, kicks, and then go for the tail, or even this drop in a heavy versus light attack, that's the easiest way to go about it. So if you're looking for nuance and depth of character in terms of fighting styles and unlocking special maneuvers and everything, this ain't the game for you. And that's okay. Again, you're not going to be able to get a ton dealing with a 90 to 100 foot tall kaiju. All right, Rodan, sit down. If there is one thing I do like about the new American Godzilla cycle that we've done in the last 10, 11 years, it is that they've incorporated characters like Mothra and Rodan and Ghidorah in new and interesting ways. Now, granted, they brought Kong into it, and I have no problem with King Kong. I mean, that's... Toho did the same thing in the 70s where they did their version of King Kong versus Godzilla. But all I can do is think back to the truly awful 90s Godzilla that Roland Emmerich did. Ooh! This is cool. Right up to the point where I got blasted. Do not let him get that. You get that. Thank you. Excuse me, there's a skyscraper in the way. Alright, we're closing in on a half an hour anyway, so this will probably be the last fight we have. Because really what it comes down to is that this game is going to get repetitive because we're just dealing with more monsters in different cities. So like right now I saw the Space Needle, so we're devastating Seattle right on the shore of Puget Sound.
KO.
Godzilla 90s is one.
You win.
But that, everybody, in a nutshell, is Godzilla Save the Earth for the PS2/Xbox from 2004, as released by Pipeworks Software and Atari. Now, is this a good game? I would say, again, it depends. If you are looking for a game of this type, so if you are, like I said, if you're a Godzilla fan, and you are trying to find something that has similar notes of nostalgia that allows you to do what all the good Godzilla movies do best, which is destroy cities, level buildings, fight other kaiju, roar a lot, and be the last one standing. You could do far worse than this game. If you're looking for a fighting game that has a lot of depth to it, a lot of originality to it, a lot of things that are not similar to other games of this type, you're probably not going to have much fun with it. Only because it's limited in its moveset. It doesn't have a lot of alternative ways that you can attack enemies. And, I mean, it's about as basic as you want in a fighting game. Still a fighting game, but if you're looking for something that's more in line of like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or Samurai Showdown or King of Fighters, those just outclass it by sheer amount of variation from character to character to character. Is this a game they can make today? Absolutely. Again, I mean, with the success of Godzilla -1 and the fact that it was an Academy Award-winning film, and I'm so looking forward to the next one that they put together, which will be hopefully the follow-up to that one. Godzilla is still very relevant, even though he is now 70 years old. For a character that was created as a response to what had happened in Japan post-World War II after the atomic bombs were dropped on them, that it has gone on to be an IP that's had such longevity and so many reinventions of itself over time. I mean, you can chart out the history of Godzilla by decade, and it's really interesting, really fascinating, and in sometimes somewhat embarrassing. I mean, they did a lot of crazy stuff, Toho, with Godzilla, and then other IP creators, especially here in the States. Again, I go back to the 90s Godzilla movie, which is just awful. Roland Emmerich should be ephegized for creating such a debacle. But that they always seem to course correct after about 10 years. And -1, I think, to me, is that latest course correction, that instead of going with the more and more and more fantastical and over the top like they did in the 90s and the aughts, that they have now come back and been like, no, let's tell more human stories around a world in which a giant apex predator kaiju like Godzilla exists in. And my God, did they get that right with -1. So if you want to try this one out, you can. Again, it's a PlayStation 2 game and it's an Xbox game. So if you have the consoles, I'm sure it's not a hard game to find. If you want to play this on an emulator, I'm using the PCSX 2.0 emulator. It's a free emulator. You can get it online. And it's not a hard game to find. So, but also, leave me notes in the comments below. What is your experience with Godzilla, Ben? Are you a kaiju fan? What got you into the genre? And tell me your favorite and least favorite Godzilla flick of all time. I'd be really curious to find out what you guys come back with. And I think it would be a really interesting point of conversation. So, again, that's Suckerpunch Sunday for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. Be sure to check out Sports Saturday as we have our ongoing Season 2 of our Great What If playthrough on Sega Sports NFL 2K2 of creating the New England Patriots dynasty without the existence of Tom Brady. We came back strong this last week after getting beat by the Colts. We ransacked the then San Diego Chargers in 2002, but now going into next week, we got to take on the Colts again on our home field. So I would encourage you to tune in for that one. Also, don't miss out on our ongoing playthrough of Super Robot Wars Alpha Gaiden for the PlayStation 1 from 2001. We are wrapping that one up. It should take a couple of more weeks. The episodes are recorded. Again, it's just a matter of getting them out. But we are pretty much in the home stretch of getting that one wrapped up, and then we will be moving on to our next playthrough. Be sure to follow us on social media through through Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. And Ronan's Retrocade helps spread the word about us as we continue to build the channel, make it bigger and better. My name is Ronan. It's been great to spend this time with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming, and we'll talk to you tomorrow as we jump back into Super Robot Wars Alpha Gaiden. Bye.